And the reason is, of course, rather than, most people are focusing on that Iran launched this attack. But I think the question that really needs to be asked is, why is it that virtually every neighbor of Pakistan is blaming Pakistan for harboring terrorists? Iran was actually attacking a notorious terrorist, a Sunni terrorist group called sh-Al-Adl. So Iran has a problem with Pakistan and claims that Pakistan is harboring terrorists. In fact, Afghanistan is today blaming Pakistan for harboring Daesh and being hand in glove with Daesh. India, of course, has constant complaints against Pakistan. And then you have the Chinese, for example, who also have concerns of the presence of the militant Uyghur terrorists in Pakistan. So clearly, one is this question that Pakistan has become a hub of terrorism, in the region. Now, Iran has attacked them because I think partly the threshold of tolerance was crossed in the attack in Kerman on the mausoleum of the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani. So Iran has been wanting to lash out for a fair bit of time. Just yesterday itself, they also launched attacks in Iraq and Syria. Again, in areas where the Syrian and the Iranian state don't exactly control. But nevertheless, they did attack another country, albeit in somewhat ungoverned spaces, although Erbil in Iraq is not exactly ungoverned. But the attack in Pakistan, again, I think is a very important message that the Iranians are sending, that they will not allow the boxing in of Iran through these terrorist organizations or parastate groups. Something which Iran itself has been accused of doing through its support for Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. Iran has also been accused of the same, but Iran does not want the same to happen to it. And I think there is a sense in Iran that it's being encircled and it wants to break out of that encirclement. And that is why it's lashing out. But I think the Iranians also made a calculation that these attacks will probably not invite any real response from the places they've attacked. Syria is in no position to attack Iran. Neither is Iraq. And I think that is the calculation they also had about Pakistan, that Pakistan is very weak. Pakistan would not want to open another front. Pakistan already has 3 fronts open against India, against Afghanistan, against Imran Khan, and now they will have another front against Iran. So I think Iranians have calculated that the Pakistanis would not want to open a new front because Iran has a lot of assets inside Pakistan, and if they want, they have the potential to create a lot of trouble in Pakistan. So I think the Pakistanis will also be very careful, and the Pakistanis will probably simply underplay the magnitude of what has happened. Some of it you can already make out from the Pakistani media, which is focusing on violation of airspace, not on the fact that missiles and drones have been fired and it's a major escalation. It's really an attack on Pakistani soil. They're not focusing on that. They're talking about violation of airspace as though, a plane has crossed a certain red line and then gone back. So they seem to be playing it down. Yeah, the usual rhetoric of we will reserve the right to respond, etc., has been given. But I don't think that the Pakistanis will really go down that road. If they do, then of course the game totally opens up. Because I don't think the Iranians are going to be wanting to sit down on this. But the problem is going to be that if both Iran stops out here and does not move forward, does not carry out more attacks, as is likely, and the Pakistanis do not retaliate, as is likely, that still does not take the third player in this entire game, which is the sh-Al-Adl. Are they going to also stay silent? Because they've already come out with a statement saying, what is the kind of damage they've suffered, what are the kind of attack which has happened on them. What will be their response? So I think it's a three-player game. So even if two are willing to step back at this point, there is a third player who can actually play spoiler.
This kind of statement, because
I think it's an empty boast. This is an empty boast, that it'll have serious consequences. What consequences? Of course, there will be tension between Iran and Pakistan, but will it lead to some kind of a shooting match between the two? I'll be a little surprised if that. I don't entirely rule it out, but I'd be a little surprised if that was to happen. But beyond that, what are the serious consequences? So yes, it's fiery rhetoric from the Pakistanis, which is what happens when you really are not in a position to do anything. And I think that is what is going to be the case. Frankly, the Foreign Office of Pakistan statement is, pretty much standard kind of rhetoric which comes out of Pakistan when this kind of an incident happens. If you go back to what the Americans used to do when they were launching these attacks inside Pakistan, you would hear similar fiery statements coming out of the Pakistanis. Did you ever see the Pakistanis retaliate publicly or openly to anything that the Americans had done? Nothing. The Americans would come, bombard through drones, all sorts of things. The Pakistanis would make pro forma, condemn it in a very pro forma way, and that was it. Business as usual. Look, I think what Pannu is doing is basically trying to provoke. Again, we cannot be too careful on these kind of threats. All these threats have to be taken seriously because, after all, SFJ is a terrorist organization. In fact, it sponsors, it supports terrorism in India, it supports criminal gangs, it has links with them, and it probably, according to the accusations which are being made, it is also very closely linked with foreign intelligence agencies. And I think this is something which should be a bit of a red line as far as India is concerned. This is something which we need to take with our partners and our friends in the West, that you cannot be hand in glove with these kind of organizations and still expect, to be strategic partners and strategic allies. That's not the way these things work. And I think the Americans, for example, should be asked, what would your response be if somebody was to issue death threats to either a governor in an American state or the American president? How would the Americans take that? Would they simply say, okay, fine, these are the ravings and rantings of a lunatic, which is what Pannu clearly is. But would they say that, or would they want some kind of action, monitoring, something to be done, something to rein in, a deranged man like that? Because deranged people can do, stupid things. Pannu is a stupid man who will do stupid things, but that does not mean that he be given license to do it. And I think the Americans need to shut him down. This has transcended the boundaries of freedom of speech and expression.